Good morning, everybody. We want to welcome you to the Empowering Pastors and Leaders Training. Today's going to be a great day. We have an amazing topic that I know is going to challenge you, hopefully stretch you. We've actually just had an experience that kind of it made the mushroom happen. You know, the old mushroom went into the sky after the bomb blew up. What a mess. You could see it was evident. So today I want to talk about a topic that prayerfully, as you grow in your leadership principles, you are going to actually step into these kind of things. We want to talk today about meeting ethics. Wow. I mean, what a topic. Last week we went into work ethic. This week we want to go into meeting ethics. And today is not just a thing we want to talk about. My staff especially, and also the business people in the room. This is a topic that you have to nail down because it only takes once, everybody say once to destroy your opportunities forever. Yeah. Doesn't take a lot of destruction. It just takes once. And so I want to talk about this today because I know that this is something that many people have never been taught, never been trained, and it's better to learn not on accident. Turn to someone and say, accident is not the best way to learn. Today we want to talk about ethics and standards. Remember, we talked about the word ethics last week was a standardization or a standard of moral excellence or a standard of elevation of expectation. So we have morality is important. Ethics are important. That is that level, that standard. And we want to talk about meeting ethics because as you are going to become more influential in your ministry and in your business, the one thing you're going to find is that God is going to give you opportunity to expand, which means you're going to be in front of people you've never been in front of before. I remember in Bible school with Sister Burnetto at Zion Bible Institute, we took a class called Ethics. Now, I really want to tell you I got great grades in that class, but I would be a liar. So I didn't get great grades, but I remember her saying this, probably the only thing I remember. Ready? Someday you might be eating with kings. And I remember she taught us all the silverware and she taught us how to talk. And, you know, as a Bible school student, I was like 20, maybe 21 years old. I didn't listen to a blessed thing she said. But boy, do I wish I had, because it has made a difference. It would have changed things. I wouldn't have had to learn more by accident than on purpose. Now, I sent out an email to everybody, and I said everybody that's online and everybody that receives, and I sent an email out reminding everybody that today is an important day that you needed to dress as if you were going to be sitting at a very influential leadership team meeting. Now, what does that mean? That means that you have been invited to come to a round table or some kind of informational gathering of a city official or maybe a state official or a national official, somebody who has greater influence than you have. And they've invited you to participate because in some manner, your leadership has stuck out to them to where they wanted to get information from you or share information with you because they believe some kind of correlation could occur that would propel the very desire that they have to see accomplished, whether it be local, state, or national. And so here we are. Many of us, and I know my staff, I kind of wrote them hard. I wanted them to come as if they're going to be at that meeting. Now, I want to challenge everybody that's in the room and everybody that's online. Some of you didn't get the email. I'm not trying to bash anybody. But if you today, if the President of the United States or if the governor of New York State, whether you like the individual or don't like the individual, or whether a multi-billionaire walked into the room and wanted to invest in your company, would you be presentable enough for them to take you serious? That is very important. Whether you like it or not, attire plays an enormous part in whether somebody sees you valid or invalid. I'm not talking about humanity. I'm not talking about whether you're a valid human, whether you're a nice person, but I'm talking whether you're valid or invalid to invest in. Because whether you like it or not, every person that's successful is a consistent investor. You find that the more they climb in their leadership skill sets and the more influence they have over county, over city, over nation, the one thing that you'll find is that they have less time. So what they do is their time is one of the most valuable commodities and is the most valuable commodity they have. So in their investment, they're not going to invest their time, their energy, their information in somebody that is not going to be valid to receive it. So every one of us are facing this reality of, as we climb in our leadership skill sets, who is going to be willing to invest in us? Now, I just went through this, and I'm going to tell you why I'm speaking on this. I'm speaking on this because we were invited to a citywide, countywide meeting to abolish poverty. It's a statewide program. And I was invited, and other ministers were invited, and we went there. And I was overwhelmed and not with peace. I was shocked. I was in dismay on the meeting. I actually watched one of the ladies that a lady found out was from a Jewish background who was not born again. I watched her in the whole meeting as the pastors, as the clergy, as the religious people spoke in this meeting with city officials. And I'm watching as her eyes are getting huge. She was in absolute dismay that this type of communication, this type of presentation, this type of showing forth of God and also churches was actually being done in a public arena. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed for the church. And I want you to know that if you're my staff and you ever do that, you are officially fired. Yeah. No, really, it's that quick. You won't even have to worry about cleaning your desk out. I'll clean it out for you. Because when we embarrass God and embarrass the kingdom of God, there is no place for that. We should have the highest standard of meeting ethics than anybody, because we represent the kingdom of heaven. Whether you're a pastor or whether you're a business leader, if you are born again, your business is to produce money to propel the kingdom. That's what your business is for. And if you're in ministry, your ministry is to propel the kingdom of God through salvation and discipleship. So we all have the same job. Our pulpit is just different. But we've got to come to this reality that if we are going to ever move forward and truly see God accelerate us and graduate us into different levels of leadership, voice, and influence, that one day you're going to be sitting in a meeting like I was the other day with city officials, maybe with statewide officials, maybe even with the president of the United States of America. And if you don't know how to conduct yourself, then you're going to embarrass yourself, the church you represent, and worst of all, the kingdom of God. So I want to talk about some basic things. Number one, I want to talk about attire. What you wear matters. Well, Pastor, I just want to do me. Well, I'm sorry. When you stepped into a leadership position, you stopped being me. You stopped having the right to represent yourself. Miles Monroe says it the best. The moment you step into government and you spend my tax money, you are no longer you. I have access to you because you have touched what I have given you. The moment you and I step into leadership, even our attire, and you know this, my wife, she forbids me to wear sweatshirts outside the house. I am really not allowed to wear t-shirts outside the house. Why? Well, we're on television, and it's not that we have a massive television audience, but in Chemung County, they say there's over 6,000 people that watch every single week. You know, that's a good amount of people. When we go into the community, it's not rare to have people quote back, I'll see you in just a little bit, or where is your beautiful wife, Rhonda? So she said to me, you look frumpy when you wear those sweatshirts. You are never, and as she said, if I catch you wearing one, I'll burn it. One day I wore it at home. I was wearing it in my own house. And she said, if I see that on you again, I'm going to burn it. I'm thinking, well, you might as well, because I'm never going to be able to wear it. I mean, I can't even wear it at home. Listen, There is no such thing as you doing you. Now, there's a big movement in Christianity today where the Christians have gotten really frumpy. Now, I'm not saying that we have to wear a tie at every meeting. I'm not saying that, we can't be stylish, skinny jeans and all the different other aspects of it. I'm not saying any of those things. But what I'm saying is we must be aware that when God elevates us to have voice in our community, voice with government officials, voice with statewide officials, voice with national officials, voice with internationals, voice with kings, voice with priests, that we have got to know how to conduct ourselves. And one of the very first ways that you and I are judged is our attire. Attire was important even to Jesus. What? What are you talking about? Well, Jesus wore a seamless garment. In fact, when they went to go tear his garment, they chose not to tear his garment. Why? Because it was an extremely expensive garment. They chose not to shred it because of the expense. Christ wore a seamless garment. So there's nothing wrong with wearing nice clothes. The issue is this. You and I, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 20, we are ambassadors of Jesus Christ, which means we represent another country, which means we represent the kingdom of God. And we have got to represent the kingdom of God. At this meeting, it was very interesting. And again, if any of you are watching, I'm not trying to bash, I'm not saying names, but I want to tell you my perspective. And that was this. Many of the pastors and leaders that were there came in T-shirts. Just simple T-shirts. One came in a T-shirt with shorts with flip-flops. And I want you to know something. There is no way that any official is ever going to take you serious when you're sitting at their table by their invitation when they're better dressed than you are. They'll look at you and they say, that is what we're getting involved with. That is what we're asking to help us abolish poverty in Elmira. They look impoverished. Now, I know this might sound strong to you, but I'm telling you, it has to be strong. Because if the church messes up, it only takes one time. David, if you go to do a presentation to a company to clean their place and you look frumpy, you look like a loser, you look like somebody who has no success, how many jobs are you going to get? None. Which means what? Well, the kingdom's not going to grow because you're going to constantly starve to death. Remember we talked about the front door of the church and the living room of the church and the business and the back door of the church and this and the front door. We had business people here. One of the gentlemen that's why he can't be here. He's working. He plants and he does flowers and he does all the excavation. He is the front door. Henry Fuchsman is the front door. He sells energy. When they see Henry Fuchsman, they see the company. So what happens is if we're frumpy, if we're nasty, if we're not portraying who God called us to be as ambassadors of heaven, our very attire disenfranchises us from the opportunity of having voice within a place that we must have voice. Anybody out there besides me? Amen. So let's talk about some basic stuff. What is acceptable and unacceptable when going to a meeting? Now, I went to that meeting knowing that I was going to be sitting at a table with a government official that I had never met. I mean, I've shaken his hand a few times, but I did not know him. I knew that there were other officials that were there that were on the team, and I didn't really. I knew Pastor Andrea, that she's the only one I knew. Other than that, I didn't know. I didn't even know that one of our ladies was on that. Beth was on the team. Didn't even know that. But I went there knowing this. I'm going to be sitting in front of these people. They're going to judge me, I think it's 11 times in 7 seconds. What are they going to see me as? So I'm wearing right now exactly what I wore that day. I went in with this outfit. And I'll just tell you what I have. I have a very nice pair of shoes on. They're brown. They match. My socks match my shirt and my pants. My jacket is a Robert Graham. It's a $600 jacket. My shirt is very nice and very, very expensive. And everything I have on me is expensive. I have a Rolex on my hand. I have a ring with diamonds in it. I forgot it on my thing. I have my grandfather's ring that I usually wear. I had all that, and I walked in with my nice folder, with my Mont Blanc pen, writing instrument. And when I sat down not near the front. When Pastor Andre came in the room, I was actually seated. They moved us. But when she came into the first room, I was seated mid-center. Everything I did in that room, from my shoes, my socks, to even the writing instrument that I had and made sure that it was out, was planned and purposed so that when the government officials, who I really didn't know, would walk in the room, they would say, that's a church we want to participate with. That's a successful church. We've heard their name before. He looks good. It's important to recognize that your attire plays an enormous part in how people take you, whether serious or you're just some flake that they really don't want to participate with. And successful people, and I don't care if you like it or not, successful people are making that judgment. Do I want to invest in them? Do I want to take my time and put it in them? Do I really want to believe that they should be on my team? And if you don't think that's serious, if the church does not awaken, then what's going to occur is the church is going to be standing outside like we've always been, wondering, and blaming the devil. Well, the devil, it's not the devil. It's that the leaders aren't stepping up to the plate like we're supposed to. And I don't mind saying that out loud. What is the first thought when they look at your attire? If someone turns around and looks at you, what's their very first thought about the attire? Would you be able to sit in front of the president? Would you be able to sit in front of the governor? Would you be able to sit in front of the mayor? And if it's yes, awesome. If it's no, you've got to ask yourself, why did you come to this meeting presenting yourself in that manner? Now, it's not every day. In fact, I spoke to my staff, I think it was 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, that they were not allowed to wear T-shirts anymore to church, that they had to wear button-down shirts. Well, why is that? Well, we have guests coming in the door. We have people that walk down the hallway. We don't know. In fact, we were in staff meeting this morning, and we were interrupted at least 2 or 3 times of people coming in the hallways. The staff has to look like they're pastoral staff. Well, what does that look like? Well, you know what? That looks a lot of different ways in different areas. But there is a standard ethic. And it means you don't look like you just rolled out of bed. All by myself. Do you look poverty-stricken or prosperous in how you're dressing? That's important. Listen now, your attire might be a T-shirt, but is it ironed? If you're the representation, is how you present yourself poverty-stricken or prosperous? Would someone say, I want to participate with them, or say, ooh, they look like they're having a hard day? This is important because you only get one shot. And you know, it really bothered me as I heard the flip-flops going across the floor. No, really, you need to know something. It took everything in me not to say something. It wasn't my place to say anything. It wasn't my meeting. But I will tell you, and that's part of ethics, you need to be quiet when it's not your meeting. Sure. We'll get into that a little bit later. Amen. But here I saw a representation of God's kingdom walking at this government, it's government. It's local government, it's government. But our opportunity to truly affect and change. And here, flip, 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 flip. I was flipping inside. Your attire screams who you are inside. So if you're frumpy on the outside, you know, this is proven. We do this with teenagers, especially when I was a youth pastor. I used to buy dress clothes for the youth. Why did I do that? They walk different. They do. How you dress on the outside does something on the inside. So if you're frumpy every day, if you're not coming professional every day, that's why I did it to my staff. You feel different when you're dressed up. You feel different when you're presenting yourself. It's very rare that you will ever see me now without a suit jacket. When I coach pastors, one of the very first things I coach to them, one of the very first sessions is this. You from this day forward will not wear shorts in public. You will wear dress pants or very nice pants, and you will wear a button-down shirt, and you will wear a suit jacket every day. Very rare you ever see me. In fact, if you go out to my motorcycle right now, it's not here, but it's at home. I rode it yesterday. If you went out to my motorcycle, you know what you'll find when you open the back bag? A suit coat. Why? Because there is a representation of ethics that people identify with. And if you're always frumpy, they're not identifying you as a professional. You're not going to go to Corning Incorporated and see people running around in t-shirts. There's an attire requirement. Never mind for meetings. Would your king be proud to say you represent his kingdom in how you dress? Your attire represents the kingdom and the company you stand in proxy for. It is better to overdress than underdress. Yes?
Yeah.
Y'all know the law of first impressions. You can't purge it. Once it's there, it's usually always there. It's a challenge when you come up and the first thing they see you as is somebody that's impoverished. Now, their mind might not say poverty, but if their mind said prosperity, they would talk differently to you. You know, you talk differently to people that are more successful. Automatic. You don't even think about it. You don't go, well, I'm going to talk differently to them. No, the moment you come around somebody that's successful, immediately you go to a higher level in your talk. In fact, I've walked into rooms where I underdressed and I went, ooh, this is not good. Why did I do that? Why would it bother me? I'm just doing me. Why? Because in every situation, when people are raising the bar, when you are below it, there's something wrong. And in meetings, you've got to be prepared in every meeting that when you prepare to show yourself, to show your God, to show your church, to show yourself, that you're not showing it in foolishness. You're showing it, and they don't have to say, boy, these poor people. You know, I remember walking out, one day I saw a man, it was an evangelist. And this evangelist had on a suit, 1970s. By the way, it was in the year 2000s. It was a 1970 patterned suit. Now, it's not that he kept it and held it over so it came into fashion again. It was not in fashion. What it was is, that's the suit he had. I talked to him later, and it smelled when you got up to him like mothballs. And so I said to him, I said, hey, that's a wild suit. He goes, yeah. He said, I just got it from Salvation Army. I said, wow. He says, yeah, I go into churches and I don't want them to think that, I'm a prosperity guy. So I dress like this. I put nothing in the offering. Nothing in the offering. Why? I don't want to be associated with that. Now, listen, if that's the best that you own, if that is the best that you have, well, that's a different story. But you know what? Salvation Army still has some pretty good clothes. You don't got to dress 1970s. He was making a statement. He was actually saying what he believed himself inside, that he was poor. And he was. And he was going to remain that way because I wasn't giving him any money. How you dress plays a massive role in how you're viewed and the words you speak at every single meeting. They either take you serious or they throw your words away, even though they might make all the sense in the world. They also look at your shoes. If your shoes are nasty, you can have the nicest suit on, but it actually describes that you really don't care. and I know I'm going to throw myself under the bus a little bit. When you look in someone's car, you can see whether they really care or not. Now, when you have 5,000 children and a crop in the field, that's a different story. When you come into a meeting, a business attire is minimal, which means this. So you're clear. Dress shoes, not white socks. If you're a man, you're not wearing white ball socks with your dress shoes. Can I hear an amen or oh my? Dress pants. Now, I want to let you know this, that I'm in a position now where my clothes are 8 to 10 to 20 years old. And I actually have had my staff members, Pastor Avina Ebo, my own sons, my wife is now starting to mock me. I had my dry cleaner say something to me. And they're all saying, yes, isn't it horrible, my dry cleaner? He said, you know, we can take those in, Pastor. Where my clothes, even though they're dress clothes, some of them $700, $800 suits. They're old. My wife for Father's Day and the pastors for Father's Day gave me money so that I could go to, I'm probably going to go to Men's Warehouse and get some pants that are, I'm going to get some suits and pants that are a little bit more cutting edge, I guess, so that I look a little bit more cutting edge, I guess. That's all I'm going to say about that. But really, it makes a difference. You know, right now, when I wear my suits, I have to bunch them on the sides because I've lost so much weight. You won't see it because I got a jacket on. But if I took my jacket off, my bottom of my can would hang down to about here, which is not pretty. Things have to change. Amen? Here's some nevers. Never to a business meeting. Never wear t-shirts, shorts, ratty shoes. You know, the shoes you can smell before they come into the room. Flip-flops, wrinkled clothes. Ladies, short dresses, low-cut dresses or skirts. What happens is when you wear those kind of things, ladies, I've sent women home. I've sent them home. They've gotten up on the altar to do praise and worship. Their skirt was above their knee. And at a 4-foot elevation of the stage, anybody sitting on the front row will be able to see way too much. I've sent them home. Why? Well, because there's a representation. There's a standard. There's an ethic. And in leadership meetings, it's important that you posture yourself, position yourself so that you are an individual that they're going to respect at the meeting. If your skirt is down here, ladies, and you go to sit down, the men are not looking at your face. If it's scooped, they're not looking at the face. Know that if you're a businesswoman, you must represent yourself as a businesswoman. Not that you can't wear those things outside, but you want to get the attention because of your wisdom, your knowledge, and your skill, not because you got a low-cut shirt or a high skirt. Amen. How you dress really makes a massive impact on whether you are valid or invalid to the community. Your dress should complement your internal. My wife wanted to say this, ladies, that your purse, your fingernails, and your shoes say a lot about you. And you need to, if you're going into a business meeting, make sure, especially with somebody more influential than you, it's not that you got to run around with a Coach bag, but that your bag looks good. It doesn't have the child's puke stains on it. It doesn't have dirt that you've drug around for a month and a half. Your fingernails aren't chipping off, and your shoes aren't taken care of. Take care of it. Because what happens is that representation declares who you really are. Here's another one that I find important when you come to a business meeting. It's called body language, how you sit. You know, Pastor Obi, can you grab me a chair real quickly? How you sit is important. Your body posture commands or disengages the people around you. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do that. If you could just aim it just a little bit. There we go. I want to just show you how I always posture myself. When I come into a business meeting, body language, as you know, is at least 93% of communication. So what you say out of your mouth doesn't mean half as much as what you are actually doing. When I come into a business meeting, I take my folder and I either put it on the desk in front of me, and I take out my writing instrument and I lay it down. And so it's sitting there in that fashion. Let's just say it's already there. But what I'm doing in my body posture is I am paying attention. And that is, I'm watching eyes. I'm not searching on my phone. My leg is usually crossed. Why is my leg crossed? Well, that is a position of authority. That is a position of an individual that is successful. Now, I remember in Bible school, we were always upset because why do you got to cross your legs like this? Only women cross their legs like this. You know, we always wanted to sit like this. Well, you know what? You go to a business meeting, you start sitting like this, and you don't have to worry about continue to be invested in. Because they know you don't know how to handle yourself. It is rough on camera. Well, I want to sit like this. Well, you can sit like this, I guess. That's a lot of work. You need to stretch before you come to the meeting. But honestly, you'll find that most business people and most successful people, when they're in business meetings, their legs are crossed, their hands are on their leg, and they're paying attention. They're giving whoever is speaking, they're giving that proper honor to. They're listening to them. Now, their mind might be thinking about the beach. Their mind might be thinking about, dear God, I want to get out of this meeting as quickly as possible because this is a waste of my time. But they're sitting there in a posture that brings honor to them. Their clothes are nice. Their attire is business. They're being taken serious. The people that are there are not looking at them as degenerates, as people that are wandering the streets, vagrants. They're looking at them as a professional, and they're saying, okay, I don't really know them, but I'm going to pay attention to them as well. You'll find a lot of times in these business meetings, especially in that one, many of the people that were talking turned to talk to me. And the reason they turned to talk to me is, really, I was the only pastor that was there that had full attire. So you found that the gentleman that was overseeing turned and talked to me. The young lady turned, she would span the room, but she would always end with my eyes and turn to me 2 or 3 different times in the middle of the conversation. The ladies on this side were unable to, but when I spoke, they automatically turned their head to make sure they looked me in the eyes. You see, this is a big part about being a business person. You've got to know how to handle yourself in business meetings. The moment you destroy because you do something foolish, you don't have that option again with that business person. You hope you do, but realistically, you don't. And if you're going for a large deal, if you're going to participate and truly affect the community, you don't have the luxury of making mistakes. Now, what I do with my body posture many times is when I'm getting ready to speak, and this is all intentional, you will see me sit up, and when it's time for me to speak, I will lean forward. I am now making myself approachable. I am making myself visible, vulnerable. And if I really want to break into vulnerability, I'll actually put my hands and lean lower. Why is that? Well, because whether they recognize it or not, there's something happening with body language. I'm speaking to them that, yes, I'm vocalizing, but I'm still submitted. It's not my meeting. You will never see me do that when it's my meeting. You will always either see me sitting straight up. You will see me with my crossed leg, as you did this morning in staff meeting, or you will see me get a little aggressive because it's my meeting. I can do that. But if it's not my meeting, I'm positioning my body to be submissive, yet my voice to have authority. This is something that if you don't recognize, what ends up happening is what happened the other day, where the government officials are staring at the clergy, staring at the religious organizations and saying, we probably expected this. It was an embarrassment. Being intentional is mandatory if you're going to become a professional. Now, there are different professional levels. But at the same time, when you're around somebody successful and you're trying to draw something out of them, you're not going in shorts unless it's a barbecue. Most of the time, you're sitting with them in a meeting and you're presenting yourself to them. The very first presentation is you. We talked about this before. When you go to eat, Pastor Obiam, get ready to stand. When you're going to eat, one of the things that you'll find when you go to eat is that the plate will come out, and when the plate comes out, you have steak, mashed potatoes, and corn. When you do steak, mashed potatoes, if you'll slide it, this would be great. Steak, mashed potatoes, and corn, so that that's at the corner of the window, please, so that the window shows very little. There we go. Very good, perfect. So what ends up happening is this, is that you're able to sell yourself. People buy you before they buy what you're selling. So if you're selling professional opportunity, listen, when I went to that meeting, I did not go to that meeting simply because I was invited. I went to that meeting because I want to make more of a difference in our city. I want to see 7, 8, and 10, 7, 8, and 10, the areas of poverty of what?
6, 7.
6, 7, 10. What's the poverty level?
Close to 50%.
Close to 50% in those 3 areas of Elmira, close to 50% poverty. I want to see His Tabernacle Family Church get in there by touching the young people, by retraining them, by getting them the gospel, getting them the truth. I want to bring a transition out of poverty through the mindset of God. But I would not be able to do that if they don't take me serious. And so when you're at a meeting, you've got to make sure that your body language is very, very clear. Your eye contact declares honor or dishonor. Where you sit is important. If you go sit next to the seat that the guy's going to be sitting in that's heading the meeting, that's pretty, that's pretty presumptuous. Jesus said it clearly, Luke 14:8. When you are invited to a wedding feast, don't sit in the seat of honor. What if someone who is more distinguished than you has been invited also? I'll always sit near the middle. That day when we moved the meeting to a different location, I actually hung to the back. I hung to the back because I didn't want to get in there and grab the first seat. I wanted to make sure I knew my attire was going to bring honor. I knew my positioning and how I talked and how I communicated was going to bring honor. And I didn't want to go in there and take the seat. Well, I didn't know where he was going to sit. I waited. I ended up sitting probably 4 seats from him to his left. And that was fine because that was the seat that was available. But how audacious it would be for someone to go in and sit right next to him without an invitation. You are the preschool or professional with your intentional or unintentional body posture. I've taught that, I can't even tell you how many times. Sometimes I repeat myself so much in these trainings, I apologize at times, but I can't. Because if we get it, then we can continue to move on. But man, some of us, we got to know our body postures. We got to know why are you sitting the way you're sitting right now? You're either accidentally sitting that way or intentionally sitting that way. The quicker that you can learn how to gauge, how to control, everything that you do determines that when you, listen, we call it muscle memory. If you're shooting a weapon and your trigger, let's just say your trigger is at 4 pounds, which is kind of heavy. right? Would you say heavy? Light, heavy? Is it heavy? Right in the middle? So at 4 pounds, you're trying to create muscle memory so you're not going like this. Because if you jerk your trigger, what happens to the bullet? It doesn't hit where it's supposed to hit. You've got to teach yourself. When I played instruments, I remember starting to play guitar. G. No, I'm sorry. D. G. C. F. And I remember learning all those notes. And I would practice those notes. Now I don't even think about it. I literally pick up a guitar right now. I'll hear a song and I'll just start playing it. How is that possible? Muscle memory. If you are never in control of your body posture, your body language, you cannot have muscle memory. Which means when you get in meetings, you have to think every moment about what I'm going to do next. But when you learn, when you've trained yourself, you can create a muscle memory to where when you get to a meeting, you're automatically going to sit like that. You're automatically going to dress like this. You're automatically going to posture yourself. You're automatically going to keep eye contact. You're automatically going to do these things. And you're not going to have to be a preschool individual that everyone's going to disregard because you've made a fool. Oh, I almost said something bad. You made a fool of yourself in a public meeting. Your welcome and recessional body language. Are you open to people? Are you available to people? There are people that when you come into a meeting, you know you're not going to shake their hands. You know they're not really interested in you as an individual. They're just there, they're going to do their meeting, and they're going to leave. Well, that's no relationship. And everything we do on this planet is all by relationships. Your relationships will either escalate you, will elevate you, or you'll do nothing with them and you'll remain the same. The people around you actually determine whether you're going to have a graduation or not. You're going to meet people and maybe only meet them once. And that one moment that you met them, maybe 10 years ago, you weren't even on the same path that you were on 10 years ago, but you met them 10 years ago. You made an impression 10 years ago. They saw that you were somebody that they were interested in, that they wanted to invest in, and now you need that one person. I was listening to a preacher this last week, and he was talking about his father. And actually, I was listening to Joel Osteen. He's good. Listen to Joel Osteen on Sirius Radio. And he was talking about his dad. Now, his father was a phenomenal, supernatural, powerful pastor. Just Daddy Osteen was awesome. That's what he was known as, Daddy Osteen. And so here's this guy he met. In fact, one day, Joel said he was over his father's house, and his mom and dad were all dressed up. And he said, "Why are you all dressed up?" He says, "Well, there's this gentleman, an African-American gentleman who is going to become a position in the government." Now, down in Texas, that's something to pay attention to. So this was many years ago. So there was strain. So Daddy Osteen and Dodie Osteen went to his party and met him. He later became the mayor of that city. And when it was time for Joel, they were interested in buying that Coliseum. Guess who the mayor was? So he said, "Hi, sir. You remember my dad?" "Oh, I love your father. He used to have him come and pray at his meetings and pray at the government things that he would do." And Joel wasn't there. But you see something? There was a connection, a professional connection. There was a connection that was made that then allowed that church to buy that building. Your connections are either going to propel you or destroy you. And that connection, most of the time, is how you present yourself. Let's talk about vocalization. The less I speak, the more influence I have when I speak. Let's say that all together. The less I speak, the more influence I have when I speak. That is the truth. Be quiet. I love this verse. Proverbs 17. It should be Prob. It's Prob 17:28. Even fools are thought wise when they keep silent. With their mouths shut, they seem intelligent. Listen, be quiet. One of the things I've always taught was, if you're coming to a meeting with me, and I remember saying this to Pastor Cody, and I've said it to other pastors that have gone with me to meetings, you do not say a word. You sit there and you be quiet. I don't care what your opinion is. You are quiet. Why? Well, I'm setting them up to look intelligent. The more you speak, the less influence you will have when you speak. In the multitude of words, there's always sin. Proverbs. I'm telling you, it was amazing. And I'm reflecting back. At that meeting, a pastor had brought somebody with him. It was a man who went to his church. And this man is sharing his opinion. And then all of a sudden, an argument broke out between a pastor and that guy. I tell you, I'd have wrung his neck. Because he wasn't just representing God, he was representing that pastor. And that pastor didn't do anything. I'd have gone off my rocker right there. I'd have looked at him and said, it's time for you to be quiet. You wouldn't have wanted to have been on my staff at that moment. You wouldn't have wanted to even been coming to my church if that was you at that moment. Because I'd have shut you down and embarrassed you publicly. Why? Because you've got to be careful what you speak. How you speak at meetings determines whether somebody sees you as an imbecile or an intelligent individual they're willing to exchange information with. And it comes down to listen now, it's not just what you speak, it's also your tones. Come on, you've been in meetings where somebody is sarcastic. You've been in meetings where, have you ever talked to somebody and they talk down to you? Oh my goodness, that just drives me nuts. I mean, I want to reach out and bless them in the Lord. They start talking to you like you're a child, like you have no intelligence at all. They start talking to you like you don't know your elbow from your fanny. You know, when you're in a business meeting and you're not in charge and you start to talk down or you start to be sarcastic, you have immediately canceled everything you've said prior, even if it was the right answer. You have taken yourself out of the game. Here's worse. You ready? You've not just taken yourself out of the game. That group will never give you the right to speak again to where it has impact. Ever. I watched as a pastor and a lay person literally argued back and forth to each other. The unsaved people in the room were like, I watched that lady's eyes. She was like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening. Sadly enough, that pastor will never have the same voice in the city again. That is really a shame. It's time to resign and move on. Because you can have impact in the religious world, but you'll never have impact in the governmental world where the church needs to start making impact. If you go to a business meeting and all of a sudden you're sitting around on a board as you are a business person and you start arguing with somebody across the table with you, you start becoming sarcastic at that meeting. You know what? Everyone is just saying, will you shut up? And you might find somebody actually bold enough to say that. But you know what? They're thinking it. Their thoughts are, when will you be quiet? When will something be said that is intelligent? So you've got to guard your tones. If you're too soft-spoken, You make no impact, easily forgotten. If you're too loud, you're irritating. I've been in meetings where somebody wanted to get their point across and they have never been taught how to communicate. So what they do is they elevate their voice. Well, I think we got to get them Jesus. Well, you know what? No one heard a word you said. No one's heard a word you said. Elevating your voice doesn't mean authority. You can cast out a devil without ever raising your voice. Authority is internal. And when you learn how to communicate, raising your voice, raising your tone does not get people's attention. What gets their attention is that what you're saying makes sense. What you're saying is wisdom. What you're saying, I love what they said about Jesus. He was a man who had, when he spoke, authority. Yes.
So by the way you dressed at the meeting, did they ask for your opinion more than the other people who were dressed nice?
No. And the reason is the other people captivated the room.
Because they kept speaking out of turn?
They just kept speaking. Yes.
Do you feel that their behavior damaged your influence?
Her statement was, does she believe that their behavior influenced
Your influence?
did their behavior damage my influence? Absolutely not. And the reason is because I kept quiet. And when I realized it was only going to continue to escalate, I interrupted. And I said, I just have one thing to say. I said my one thing and excused myself from the room. So by doing that, what I did is I took my statement, drove it home, and left the exclamation point by leaving the room. I knew what I was doing, and I knew the influence I'd have if I did that. Strategic. Your words must be strategic. When you go in and you're flippant, when you're just saying whatever you want to say, when you're saying your feelings, listen, your opinion and my opinion does not matter. It's true. It doesn't matter. That book we went through, I mean, we've gone through it twice. What got you here won't get you there. One of the main flaws of leaders is they actually think their opinions matter. So we get into a business meeting where literally we have the opportunity to be phenomenal learners and to be able to glean not only information, but relationships that will propel us forward in the future and bring greater success to our lives and bring glory to God. And instead we ramble, babble, talk, and produce nothing but people looking at us because of our tone, our actions, our words that they're hollow. And they've immediately discredited you and you mean nothing then. And you'll mean nothing the next meeting. You don't have a lot of options. You've got to learn to be quiet. Be concise. The longer you talk, the less people hear. In the event of a personal attack, this is what you do. Nothing. Let them attack. Let them say what they're going to say. Hold your body posture. Do not let them see your face grimace. Do not let a tear crawl from your eye. Stand firm. Why? Because the moment they see that breaking, they show a level of control. I am still in control as long as I'm holding to my posture. Remember in high school, it was my 11th year. Actually, it was my 12th year. I had gotten born again at the end of my 11th year. And a kid walked up to me, my hands were in my pocket, and he stiff armed me in the face. Punched me right in the mouth. And I had a choice. It hurt. And there was blood. I had a choice. My response was going to create an environment of either a fight or I win or he wins. Here it was, ready? I looked at him and said, well, that was pretty sad. I'm glad that's all you got. They didn't laugh at me. They laughed at him. And he kept walking. Your response when you're publicly attacked in a meeting, especially in a meeting, because it's very easy to lose control in a meeting once you're being attacked. At that very moment, if you learn to stay steady, you'll find that the waves will automatically calm. Why? Because if you're a person that understands tones, when I go into a meeting and I find, and I did it in that meeting as well, I found that the tones were raising high. One gentleman was yelling. One was being sarcastic and actually attacking another individual. When I did say, excuse me, I do have one thing, I kept my tone very neutral. When you keep your tone neutral, you bring an environment with you. It's very interesting when I'm in a very intense situation. You'll find my voice. Listen, I just want you to know that if you keep your tone solid, that you can bring a peace to the situation. Listen, I understand you're upset, but you can bring peace to the situation. Your tone does everything. So it's not just what you speak, it's the tonage you use. It's how you verbalize it, how your face creates the words. You ever seen somebody, they're saying something nice, but their face says they're mad? Yeah. I remember a prophecy. It happened up in Newfield when I was pastoring up there. I had this guy, he jumped up with a prophecy, and it was a really encouraging prophecy. But everybody was like ducking because his face was all grimaced. His tone was bashing, but all the words were right. I do this to my dog all the time. I pet him on the head and I say, oh, Benelli Brown, you're the dumbest dog I've ever seen in my entire life. Tone does everything. So your words and your tone spoken once can discredit literally you forever. You've got to be careful. Accessories. When you're going to a meeting, you're going to have accessories. I'm almost done. Business cards. Listen, if you hand me, I'll leave this up here for you to look at later. I just had business cards done. I had Corey create them. These are awesome business cards. Every person that's picked up my business card to date that has picked up this one business card has said, oh my goodness, that is really nice. They don't throw it away. People don't throw away junky business cards. They'll keep them. They might file them somewhere, but they're going to keep them because they're nice. It's a first impression. Number two, your writing instrument. If you're walking in with a Bic pen that has a blown out back end, you got to know no one's taking you serious. I didn't believe that till I went for training when it came to coaching. We've talked about this before. I have a Mont Blanc here. This is the one I use on a daily basis. Mont Blanc is not a pen, it's a writing instrument. When you go before a king, when you go before the president, when you go before a government official and you whip out a Bic pen, let me tell you, there is no impression being made there at all. Here's one that I use on an everyday occurrence. But when I go to a position where I'm going to a place that it has high officials, I take this Mont Blanc. This is a phenomenal writing instrument. You can touch it later. You can play with it. Don't you take my Mont Blanc. It is a beautiful writing instrument that grabs attention. And it's a high quality. Now, for some, that might mean nothing. But if you're going to sit with a banker and you're asking for a few $1 million and you pull out a Bic pen, now the banker is going to use their pens with their logos on it. But when you whip out yours and they understand what that is, they're saying, okay, I'm all right here. There is an equation that's made. Now, I not only have a Mont Blanc pen, I have a Mont Blanc wallet. You should always have a $100 bill in your wallet. Save your money, get a $100 bill. You never touch it. It's in your wallet. Why is it in your wallet? Well, because when you're with a person of high influence and you can only pull out a $1 bill, they're not that impressed with you. My grandfather taught me that when I was a child. He always had a wad of hundreds. Always, no matter where he was. That was his bank. But when you have a $100 bill on you, you to yourself might be, well, it's just a $100 bill. It doesn't mean anything. But when somebody is there, they see a $100 bill, that brings a level of influence. Your folder, your electronic device. If you're bringing in your iPad and it's got a shattered glass, dear God, put it away. Food. If you're going to I got to go quickly. If you're going to a meeting and it's dealing with food, are you ready? You never order first unless you're paying. Say it one more time. Ethics. You never order first. They can tell you whatever you want. You can have whatever you want. I always let them order first. Why? Because then you never buy above what they paid for their own meal. Listen, I got people right in my head right now that I will not take out to eat. No, really, I won't. I won't ever take them out to eat. You want to know why? I know that if I go to a restaurant, they're going to look for the most expensive plate on there, and they're ordering before I order. I'm a meal ticket for them. I'm sorry, I'm a meal ticket for nobody. Everything I have, I earn. God bless me with. Listen, if I want to take you out to eat, I want to take you out to eat because I love you. Don't take advantage of that. So when you go out to eat with a business person and all of a sudden you look at the lobster and say, well, I want lobster, but they spent $14.95 on a chicken plate and you just spent $65, you got to know that they're not taking you out to eat again. And when you sit down to eat with them and you're eating like this, guess what? They're not impressed. They're not going to eat with you again. Yes.
So when they say you can have whatever you want,
They don't
mean it?
Oh, no, they might mean it. But don't you dare do it.
I'm just learning.
I go out to lunch with Jay Parmenter. We go out at least once a month. We go to Olive Garden. We always get pretty much the same thing. I don't want to over-order. But if I know I'm buying, I'll order first and I'll order whatever I want. But if he's buying, I know I can do his order without him even getting to the table. But if he's buying, I'm going to make sure that his order is down first. You do that out of honor and respect. These are part of things in business that you do. This is what I was taught. Food is not about eating when you're at a business meeting. If you're at a buffet, dear Jesus. You're at a buffet at a business meeting, all you can eat. You don't come back with a plate that's mounded. You engorge yourself and go back for seconds. Listen, you know what you just said? You have no self-control. And that you have no interest really in the relationship that you're building there. Because food is not about food when you're at a business meeting. It's about conversation. So that's why when you go to really nice restaurants, you order a $45 plate of food and it looks like it cost them 29 cents because you get a steak about that big around and you get three little curls of carrots.
Is it safe to say that if you're in a business meeting and you're invited to one and it's really not worth it if it's at a buffet? I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, well, sometimes it depends on the amount of people.
I mean, I'm thinking of Old Country Buffet, not like a high-end.
Well, that's a different story.
Maybe jealous.
It's just important that you pay attention on what you're doing. Pastor Andrea wrote these things. If you did not do your homework enough to know and understand the environment you're going into, the attire, the attendees, expectation, culture, then I question the validity and reliability of anything you have to offer. That's good. Leaders prepare for meetings. Athletes prepare for the game. A dear friend who was a professional athlete told me this: practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Number 2, as a senior leader, you have 3 minutes to grab the attention, to keep my attention. The elevator speech. Be practiced, be perfect, and complete in him. Do not come to a meeting with power shooting from your hip. These are the 3 things you want to, what are the 3 things you want them to remember about you after the meeting? And let me tell you, they will remember you. When I left that meeting, they'll remember me whether they like me or not. I made my entrance right, and I made my exit right. My body posture was right. My clothes were right. My statements were correct. My tonage was right. And when I left the meeting, I left the meeting. They will remember me, and I have lunch with one of them this week. Why? Because I want to make a greater impact. And guess what? He gave me the right to have a meeting because he said, yes, I'll come. Are you committed, helpful, a solutionist? Bringing something to the table, kingdom-minded or a leech, whining, moaning, complaining, fighting, bickering. Dear God, it was all there. People often assume that leaders do not know the problem. Many good leaders usually know what the problem is. It is your job, if you are worth your weight in gold, to solve the problem. Bring ideas for solution and innovation, not just restating of the problem. You're constantly just stirring it up. What are you doing? Nothing. Bring a solution. Do not get stuck in the mud of your latest mental and emotional flood. Yes.
So I got to go back to the leg thing because I've never been taught this before. I don't like this posture that I'm sitting in right now. I don't know if I can bend it. Like that's painful to me. But
in your world,
so this is good. This is bad. This is what
in your world,
Yep.
you can get away with that.
In the corporate world, you
not like this.
No,
No.
you're still exposing yourself.
But to cross your leg at a corporate meeting, you think you said that?
That is acceptable.
But that shows. What did you say? That shows
You're studious, you're professional, and you're paying attention because you've aimed your body. Now, when I'm in those meetings, I will actually move myself. If someone over here is talking, I will actually move my body so my leg is aiming in their direction. So I'm not only getting their eye contact, but now my body is now focused at them. So that is in the business world. You want to add to that?
Yeah, can I also add for women as well? Cross your leg only if you're not going to show something. Because unfortunately, if you're going to show something, then you cross at the lower, you cross at your ankles. You know, and for some, that's really uncomfortable for women to do if they're not used to crossing at their ankles. But really practice that, because sometimes you may not even be thinking that you might show something. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're in practice, your ankles will always go that way. You know, but if you are a woman in a business meeting and you cross your leg and show something, you've lost it.
You've lost it.
Okay?
You don't get another shot.
Right, because you want them to listen to your intellect, not your legs. Okay.
It's a very important. Now this was going to be a very practical class, and it was because we came from a very practical situation that was not very practical. And for the kingdom, I was very ashamed. To be honest with you, I was very ashamed. Yes.
You just ignore the people that might be at the meeting that have like a poverty mentality. They're thinking like, oh, he thinks he's a better pastor.
Absolutely.
Money.
I don't really care who they think I am. I know who I am.
Amen.
I am successful. I am powerful. My voice does matter. I will bring resolution and response. I will make an impact. I know that. People who are insecure don't like that.
And when we say that no apology is necessary, when you know who you are in the kingdom, you don't have to explain it or apologize for it.
One more
A
reason.
little bit louder, please.
One more reason why you really don't care is because there's always another meeting after that main one.
Mhm.
So the closer you get to that goal, the meeting gets smaller and smaller. And as it gets smaller, you will have a more personal invite. So that one that pastor had with that person, that's where real things are. That's where like real things are going to be. So that's right. You really don't care because the people that will actually be making those moves, they will go to you one-on-one and say, "Can I meet with you
Yes.
outside of this group?"
And sometimes people get distracted because there's always a meeting before the meeting, and then there's the meeting, and then there's a meeting after the meeting. So even if you weren't invited to the meeting before the meeting, it's important for you, do your homework. I mean, there was no one who made any calls to really ask what, other than Pastor Spencer, what's the attire? What's the agenda? What's the purpose of it? Please do your homework. Care enough to do your homework.
Yes.
Some people may not even give you any insight, but at least you've asked. You know, you've asked the question. And then also, there's always a meeting after the meeting. He's now in the meeting after, there were 2 meetings after that meeting. So he's now in the 3rd meeting after the meeting, moving it. Because sometimes, most of the time, the real decisions don't get made in the meeting. They're made outside of the meeting. That's where the real relationship is built. So you go through the posture of the meeting, but you don't want to go through the posture of the meeting and screw it up.
That's right.
Because there'll be no follow-up.
There'll be no follow-up.
When did you feel comfortable enough to actually interject without having a posed question?
I realized that it was not ever going to stop. The bickering, the fighting, the actual argument, it was horrific, was not going to cease. So I leaned forward in my chair and I said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have a meeting that I have to go to. I just want to say this." And all I did was reiterate what one of the other officials had already said. And then I said, "Thank you very much for your time, and I need to excuse myself." And I got up and I walked out. So there are times that the bickering's not going to stop. It's just important that you are the representation. Now, I want to end with this. It's not just what you wear, but also what you don't wear. Now, I do want to show you 2 things that I should not be wearing. One thing I should not be wearing right now is what? My bracelet. Why shouldn't I wore this on purpose. Why shouldn't I be wearing this bracelet? It's too flashy. It's not made for this type of meeting. I did not wear it that day. I wore my Rolex, but I did not wear the bracelet because the bracelet would have been too much. It's not just what you wear, but what you don't wear. This right here is a tremendous jacket, but I would not have worn it to that meeting. If there was a dinner party afterwards, I would wear that to the dinner party and I would feel comfortable wearing that. So pay attention, not just what you should wear, but pay attention what you should not wear. Okay, so these are some of the things also. I just think this is a phenomenal lesson. And amazingly, I wasn't taught this. I learned this on accident. Don't learn this on accident. You don't have to. We actually recorded it so that you can have it. You know, we want you to, yes, I'm sorry.
I would love to add a point. As soon as you get to the parking lot, know that someone is paying attention to the way that you walk,
Yes.
what you're doing to get to the door, while you're walking through the building, who you're interacting with, how you're just engaging people. And even as you're leaving, it's the same thing.
Yes.
Just always be aware and just manage your brand
Yes.
and everything that you do, because it's from the moment your car pulls in or even driving there,
Yes.
you can easily have an interaction with people.
That's very good. I like that. Manage your brand. You're the brand. When you're sitting at that meeting, you've either disengaged, disenfranchised, or brought you to a level of greater influence. Nobody else, it's you. And if you're representing God, dear Lord, you don't have the luxury to be a fool. If you're representing me, you know you don't. And if you're representing the church, you don't. So we have to pay attention. That's why I wanted to do this. And Pastor Andre was extremely helpful with this. This is so important because this church is going to continue, and the people of this church are going to continue to raise in influence in our community. You've got to know how to posture yourself when you go to these meetings, because if you don't, you're gonna lose it. You're gonna lose your influence, and you can't get it back. It's gone when it's gone. It really is. It's gone when it's gone. I've been a fool before. When I've been a fool before, they're always remembering. You know, people don't like to remember the good things about you. They always remember the bad things about you. I'm telling you, I can't regain that. Can't regain that. Any more thoughts or concepts? Yes.
Sometimes it's appropriate to bring a gift.
Very good. Now, that right there, she said, sometimes it's appropriate to bring a gift. You know what that is? That's the book of Proverbs. It says you never come before the king without a gift.
Amen.
Did you bring him a gift when you went up? When you went up north? Jay, remember when you had to that business meeting with Mogul?
Okay. No, I took him to lunch.
You took him to lunch. If you'll find a gift, always position yourself. Charles Endefon, Apostle Endefon, never goes and ministers to the church without a gift. My wife and I never go to minister in a church without a gift for the pastor and his wife. Why? Because it always brings honor. Yes.
How do you feel about people using like an iPad or a phone to take notes as opposed to just...
I don't care about that, but what the question was, what do you feel about people using their phones or iPads to take notes? I don't care about that, but you have to pay attention to the one who's owning. Yeah. If whoever is owning that meeting, if they're more mature, they might not be okay with that. And so I that day brought my iPad and my notebook because I found that it was getting intense. I did not even pick up my iPad. I cracked open this and simply took notes of the little bit we could between arguments. And honestly, I didn't even play with the iPad. It wouldn't have been appropriate.
If I can also add
A little
to
bit
that.
louder, Pastor.
Okay, if I can also add to that, even if you are going to take notes on your phone and it's with someone who might be more mature, because I'm considered more mature, and I take notes with my phone, I always announce to the other person, so they'll know. I'll say, I'm going to take some notes on my phone. So, just to let them know that you're taking notes and not sending texts. You know what I mean? Very good. Somebody else. It's good stuff. Practical, that will save you. Because if you don't live this out, let me tell you, only that one time, and it can disembark you from your vision. Yes.
This may seem like very childish and small, but
A little bit louder,
so
please.
imperative. If you are eating, you always eat away from yourself and not towards yourself.
Correct.
Because you can't change how you just go soup all over
Correct.
yourself. So like normally, like when you eat soup, you go like
Bring it to
like
Yes.
this. When if you're gonna be meeting with someone, you scoop away. That way you now minimize the potential for you to splash on yourself. Whenever you will cut, most people they cut with the food facing them, you want to cut away. Those are the small things because if you're gonna stain on yourself, you like wearing white or anything, that meeting is ruined.
Yes. So here we are. When you do soup, say this is a soup bowl, you're actually supposed to tip it away from yourself and dip away from you and then up.
Right.
Dip away. Tip, dip. Yes.
So I have a question. Just I know that I'm kind of young, so I probably wouldn't want to say anything in a meeting anyway, even if I am like quote unquote right. I would just probably want to shut up and take notes. But I can't help but think that maybe if you are young and you have a thought like, wow, Jesus maybe could have dropped something in my spirit and I have to say this right now, or else the word of God isn't going to be like, you know what I mean? Like if you really feel like Jesus gave you something to say in the meeting, how, like, is that ever appropriate to say? Not to stand up and be like, Jesus gave me like a word. Or
No, it is appropriate. It's just, again, it's you. How did you come looking to the meeting? What was your demeanor during the meeting? What was your posture? Then when you say, excuse me, is it possible that I could just share what I think is important? and you speak it with clarity. No question behind it. My Bible college class, the one thing that you always will learn in my Bible college class is if you give me an answer with a question mark behind it, it is wrong. So when you make a statement, and it is, when you make a statement, you've got to say it with authority. So it's something that you can't have a question. The moment you have a question mark, it's disingenuous anyways in their mindset. It's foolishness. Yes.
And can I also add, this is not in regard to that, but I could hear when Pastor was talking about, the Mont Blanc pen and the clothes. Some people immediately in their heads, well, I can't afford that. I don't have that kind of money. I don't, So again, it's not always the label, but it's the quality. TJ Maxx, Peter Harris. There are a lot, great sales at Joseph Banks, I think twice a year. There are a lot of great places where you can really get very high quality clothes very affordably.
Yes.
And all you need is really, basic black or pinstripe. You just need a couple of pieces that you can match and go back and forth with. So it really does not take a lot of money to present well, in that type of environment. You may only have a chance to wear that jacket once or twice a year, but if you have it for 20 years, you know what I mean? And so that's an important piece. No, it may not be your uniform. Some environments, they have uniforms that they wear. They have a certain style of dress. But again, just having those items. I was trained as an executive to have a black bag in the car. And I actually have a bag in my car that if for some reason I'm called into a meeting, I've got to get on a plane, it has a black dress in it, and I actually put my dress on today, a black dress, black pants, black slacks, a jacket, black shoes or some kind of shoes, and a pair of pearls. That's it. I'm always ready.
Yes.
So do you think you can be overdressed or actually be a detriment to that? Because I think I would say it was 6, 7, maybe even 7-ish years ago when the natural gas race came in.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to work every day, a pair of slacks, khakis, usually a button down or polo. I was a lot better dressed than I am today, and I almost feel like in meeting with those people, I wasn't taking it serious because they got mud on their boots.
Yep.
They're in the field. A lot of times our meetings were in the field, and I tried that but do you think you can be overdressed or dressed for the occasion?
You must understand your customer.
Right.
So if I'm meeting with a government official, well, I'm not dressing in khakis. But if I'm going to meet with the gas people on the gas field, I might have to be in my khakis, and that's okay. You've got to be able to dress to the meeting level, but you don't want to be.
Do you dress to what they are, or do you dress above them?
I usually dress to and or above.
I was trained in corporate life to dress 2 levels above myself. So that means you have to do your homework. So you'd have to look and figure out, what they look like. And again, if you're going to dress with the operations people of the gas company, that might be a different style of dress than if you meet with the CEO of the gas company. Sure. So that's just doing your homework. Do your homework.
So 2 times above?
2 levels above.
2 levels above.
Absolutely. We were trained to do that. And of course you say, well, how in the world can I afford that? Because they have, the much larger, salaries, etc. And they would tell you, go to Joseph Banks twice a year, sale time. They would tell you, the trainers in that environment told us how to dress for success or in that environment. And the same standard works. I have to say to my own staff, your uniform when you're in a weatherization and climbing in the hole for my company is a different dress than when I'm going with you to a house to climb in a hole.
Right.
It's different than when I'm going to Chemung Canal Bank to cut $1 million deal.
Right.
So my staff can tell. They can tell when I'm just in the office that day compared to when they were like, oh, you're meeting with the bank today.
Yes.
Honestly, they can see. I'm like, oh yeah, not the bank, the lieutenant governor. But still, they can tell the difference. And so I encourage you, just do your homework. Somebody in this church has met before with whomever you're going to meet with. Somebody in this church.
That's right.
And so when you do that, you'll do your homework. You'll call, you'll text, hey, I got this meeting, this person. And they'll give you some insight around that. It'll only take a minute. It doesn't take a lot. But you can tell when none of that's been done, it really can end up costing you a lot,
It can.
you know, in terms of influence.
It doesn't take long to lose influence. That's really important. It doesn't take long to lose influence. And you can't afford it. You can't afford to lose influence. You lose it, how are you going to get it back? You can't get it back 90% of the time. Really, you can't. You know, they've made their first impression. That's it. They're done. They're set. So we have to pay attention to this meeting. Meeting ethics. Meeting ethics. Meeting ethics. I put it on paper so that you have it. Now, this isn't a complete list, but this will get you, if you do these, you're on target. You can make sure you can go to a business meeting and walk out and be seen as somebody they want to have on their team and or invest in.
Amen.
That is important. And I just really was overwhelmed. And again, I don't want to keep beating that stick, but I was really overwhelmed. When I got out to my truck, I immediately texted Pastor Andrea. And I won't tell you what I wrote in the text, but honestly, I'm not a cusser in any way, shape, or form. But they made a donkey out of the kingdom. And I was ashamed.
And if I can add to that, the impact that we also have in others who are watching us. I then had to spend later that day 2 hours debriefing one of the staff people who was there, because they didn't understand what happened. They were so disappointed that because they knew some of the individuals and knew that they were pastors in the area, and that in some past I found out had attended a couple of the churches. So they were really, it was not a good witness for them. I just spent 2 hours debriefing the staff person, because that person has to continue to try to work with some of those pastors and members in the community. So let's not cause that to happen for the body of Christ. You know what I mean?
Amen.
You know, we all have that opportunity to be a great witness.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And I believe God wants to make you extremely successful.
Oh, he does.
I believe God wants to bring this church and you as business people to the highest levels possible, so that we can have the most influence in our region than we could ever have. We can't do that if we continue to shoot ourselves in the foot. So we have to know how to be in meetings. This is very practical. Pastors online, very practical. This is very strong principles. You do this, you go to a meeting, you don't have to walk out ashamed. You can walk out with your shoulders back and your head high, knowing you represented the kingdom, your company, and the person you stand for. Ambassador of Christ. Amen?
Amen.
Anybody else got one more question and we're good? Excellent. Thank you so much for watching Empowering Pastors and Leaders. And I pray that you're blessed. We do have notes if you would like the notes. And you can send me an email, drspencer@empoweringpastors.com. We'll get that right out to you. Have a phenomenal day and be that ambassador for Christ.
They were saying